What's going on, family? Hope you're doing well. I hope you're feeling amazing. The revolution starts within. We are in some very, very powerful times right now, if you all couldn't tell. Challenging, tough, and it's impacting us all in different ways. But overall, it's extremely powerful. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of love. There's also a lot of hate. There's a lot of distractions. There's just a lot going on. And, it's when you see the protests and when you see people stepping up and you see these injustices being brought to light, you can't help but realize and see that there is a big change happening in our world. All over the world, people are fighting for the justice of Black lives. And, that's something that hasn't been done to this scale. And so this is definitely amazing times, and at the same time challenging. And it happens to be at the wake of some very traumatic events in terms of the deaths and killings of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and so many others. These are just the ones that are most recent. Me personally, I was really, really, really hit hard when it came to Ahmaud Arbery, and watching that video, it was very traumatic. As someone who runs and jogs 4 to 5 times a week, after seeing that video, it was tough for me to even get outside. It was tough for me to get in the flow of jogging because of the fear, the thought that lingered in the back of my mind, and looking around, looking to see if somebody was watching me as I run through these neighborhoods. And so too many of that is happening, and you see the demand for change. And it's encouraging. It's encouraging seeing the love that is being surrounded for this movement, and the people that actually see what's happening. They see the love. And as far as the media is concerned, they're going to try to create the chaos, create the division. But there truly is love, true love at the core of all of this. And when I look at this, I think about the times that we're in, I can't help but to think of what's next. And, what are the next steps? What are the next opportunities? And it's complex. I don't think anybody has like a direct answer for that, because there's so many different types of warfare that has been used to oppress Black people, especially. We're fighting a lot for the physical warfare that is happening, with actual killings and having to protect ourselves. There's socio-economical warfare, the inequality in the social and economic system, but there's also internal warfare that has been happening for a very long time, in terms of mental warfare, psychological warfare, spiritual warfare. Like Black people especially, we haven't necessarily been taught how to love ourselves, how to love our history, how to love where we came from. Growing up, the majority of us learned and experienced a version of ourselves that were in slavery. That's all we knew of our history, is slavery and being beaten and raped and traded in the slave trade. And, fortunately for me, I'm extremely blessed to have been raised in a family of civil rights leaders, and went to an African-centered elementary and middle school where we were only taught African history. I didn't know anything about George Washington until high school. And I knew about George Washington Carver, a scientist who invented peanut butter and was extremely impactful in the scientific world. I knew about Martin Luther King. I didn't know about Martin Luther, the founder of the Protestant church. I think I said that right. I learned about that in high school. I'll never forget when I went to high school. One of the first weeks of school, I went to a predominantly white Catholic high school, and I remember in our world history class, the teacher had asked the class to raise your hand if you know who Martin Luther is. And I remember nobody really raised their hand. I was a little surprised coming from The school I went to was called Roots, and we of course knew who Martin Luther King was, and so I raised my hand super fast to answer the question. I remember standing up with confidence. Martin Luther, he is a civil rights leader. He wrote the I Have a Dream speech, Nobel Peace Prize winner. He did so much for America, and I just kept rambling on, and teacher kind of had a little smirk on his face, and I'll never forget, he looked at me with a little smirk on his face and said, "That is incorrect." And I knew somebody else raised their hand in the class, and I was so confused because I just knew I was right. Someone else raised their hand, and they started naming Martin Luther. He was the founder of I think it was Protestant church. I'm gonna have to do my research on exactly what he founded, but that was an eye-opening experience for me. And we didn't learn anything. 90% of what I learned in my elementary and middle school, the African Center School, we probably learned 5% of it in that world history class. And that was the first time I realized that these are two different worlds. And a lot of people didn't get a chance to experience that African history side, and moves on throughout their life not knowing the contributions that Black and African people have made on this world, on this country. And so I think one of the most powerful things we can do as we continue to fight, as we continue to protest, as we continue to demand justice in this country, in this world, we have to also add to that equation the importance of knowing ourselves, knowing thyself, and knowing our history, knowing where we come from, and learning to love ourselves by loving who we are, loving who we came from. And like I said, it's not easy because we've been in the media. You're gonna see a certain image. And so it's not easy. And so that's extremely, extremely important to know thyself. And we have to understand also the range of generational trauma that we have experienced, and to address it and understand it. There are a lot of patterns that, especially in the African American household, that are passed down from generation to generation, and it's not all positive. A lot of it is coping. A lot of it is due to some of the stresses that we've experienced. And every family's different, but there are a lot of families who grew up without fathers in the household because they were arrested on very minor charges. There's abuse in households because of the stress and, just the need for survival. Families torn apart. We're living in a world where we're taught to be divisive and not to trust one another. There's a lot of psychological damage, a lot of psychological trauma that we also have to address, because it doesn't matter really what we get from the outside, what opportunities are given to us. Is very important. We have to continue to fight for it. We have to also understand that even with those opportunities, if we don't deal with the trauma that exists within us, then that trauma is going to manifest in a whole nother way. It doesn't matter how much money we get. It doesn't matter how good life looks on the external. That trauma still exists. And it can just keep getting passed on from generation to generation. And so understand and address our own generational trauma and what we have going on. We have to practice self-love as we demand love from others, as we demand love from society. We have to also demand love within ourselves. And what that means is we have to eat like our life matters. As we continue to demand people to respect and understand that Black Lives Matter, we have to also treat ourselves like our lives matter. And that starts with the food that we eat. And it's not easy, because when you look at majority of the Black neighborhoods, you're gonna see a McDonald's, you're gonna see a Wendy's on every corner, you're gonna see a Burger King on every corner. And we eat good, not just the fast food, but when you go into the household, you're gonna get some good soul food. We like to eat. We like to season that thing up pretty good. It's not always healthy for us though. And everything is cool in moderation, but we have a spiking diabetes rate in our community. And a lot of that food, a lot of that feel-good food is really a coping mechanism for a lot of the stress and that we're really forced in a lot of ways to deal with. And so we just have to be mindful of how we treat our bodies. We have to practice self-love and understand that everything that we consume affects us. So we have to consume things that are positive for us. And that starts with how we eat. But to eat like our life matters. We have to meditate like our mind matters. Meditation is really just training our awareness. It's training our ability to be aware of our thoughts, of our emotions, of our choices, of our behaviors, and not be as reactive to certain stimuli. You know, a lot of the things that we're experiencing on social media, you know, as we attempt to stay in the know and understand what's going on, a lot of it is traumatic, especially when you're looking week after week and you're seeing people who look like you dead in the middle of the street with a cop's knee on their neck. And we have to be in the know, but we also have to take time for ourselves. Balance it out. Have a little bit of meditation to clear our minds and to just be able to be proactive, to understand when we are being pulled emotionally and reactive into certain situations. Having that control of our minds to be able to see things from a wider perspective and to be able to take action on things and to really just practice the love of ourselves. You know, meditation is extremely important for that. And so understanding that our minds matter and what we consume really affects us, we can be more aware of what we consume. We can counteract a lot of the negativity that we're constantly bombarded with positivity, just to balance ourselves out a little bit. So as we continue to fight, let's eat like our lives matter. Let's meditate like our minds matter. Let's exercise like our health matters. Let's continue to keep our body moving, continue to keep our body fresh, continue to keep it going. Let's continue to connect with Source like our spirits matter. Connect with God, connect with the divine, connect with nature, however it looks to you. Understand the power that we have within us and all around us. And connecting with that Source, connecting with that divine allows us another means of practicing self-love. And so we have to continue to fight. We have to continue to protest. And we have to continue to demand change from the people that can make the decisions, the people that can make things happen. We have to also add to that self-love, knowing thyself, knowing our history, knowing where we come from, knowing the contributions that were made, and really taking pride in being Black. And this message kind of dwindled and went directly to Black people, but it's something that we need to hear. You have to take pride in being Black. Take pride in your hair. You know? Take pride in your skin. There's been a lot of means to have us not love that aspect of ourselves, to cut these things off. But we have to know ourselves. We have to practice self-love. And we have to be there for our community, be there for our family. And we also externally have to protect ourselves. You know, whether that be getting a gun. And I truly dislike guns. I'm not a fan of it at all. You know, but it is important that we protect ourselves. However that looks for you, protect yourself. So that's pretty much all I want to say, guys. The revolution starts within. No matter what, we have the power. We have the power to demand change from the external. We also have the power to demand change in our internal. And we have the power to demand change generationally. So we're not carrying on the same traumatic energies that have existed in our families for so long because of the hundreds of years of abuse. the psychological abuse, the mental abuse, the physical abuse, the socioeconomical abuse. Let's empower ourselves so that we then can take steps forward and make a better world for our next generation. The revolution starts within, family. I love y'all, and stay safe, stay protected, all the way protected, mind, body, and spirit. If you all have any comments, any questions, any concerns, if you want to discuss this topic even more, leave a comment below and I will respond. Promise you. Leave a like, subscribe if you have not already. And yeah, I'll be back next Wednesday. I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.